2021, let's just say we're still talking about retrofitting all those heat pumps. So we'll have 8 years left to retrofit 50,000 heat pumps per year.
Yeah, I mean
That's a
it's
massive task.
massive. And I suppose just for anyone who's watching who isn't entirely sure of what we're talking about, under Ireland's climate action plan, the new government wants to retrofit 500,000 homes to a B2 rating and install 400,000 heat pumps in existing homes by 2030. So it's a massive, massive task. And I suppose just what you're saying there in terms of the heat loss indicator, I need to take note of all these acronyms. I'm learning so much. I'll make sure
Absolutely, yeah.
to put them into our notes at the end of this. But, I suppose just to kind of move on to that, Calin, in
Yeah.
terms of like the other barriers relating to that, in terms of kind of skills and knowledge gaps, I'd love to get your opinion on how you think we can kind of overcome those and collectively make this happen, because it is necessary.
Absolutely, Katie. And one of the, never mind the cost. So that is a massive barrier in itself. Let's say we'll overcome that. Yeah, we come over that hurdle. Then it's the actual installers that are willing to move from their traditional gas and oil boilers to install heat pumps, right? And when we install a heat pump, it's not. It's also important to for our listeners to know that the, the electrician plays a big part in that. So it's not it's not a massive task to retrofit a heat pump, but there are a few trades involved in that. So you could have you'll have the mechanical contractor, which is your plumber. You have the electrician. We want to ensure that the power supply to the house is appropriate. You may have to do some upgrading there, okay? And then you may have, for example, I mentioned split heat pumps. You may have a refrigeration engineer involved. So you'll have all these trades that have to be that have to buy into doing all this work, right? So the big challenge is in the actual availability of installers, right?
Mm,
So that is a big, big challenge. Uh, there is a fear factor there, right? So something that it's not being understood properly, is not maybe being communicated, is not being properly advertised at uh, from top level down. Yeah, that
okay.
creates this uh, kind of magic thing about heat pumps. Heat pumps are just it's a device that generates heat. Yeah, so we want to ensure that is installed correctly,
Hmm.
is that is designed correctly, yeah, and is operated correctly. That's all really. For
Hmm.
that, we need our installers to 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 change from installing fossil fuel, let's say, heat sources to these cleaner ones.
Hmm.
Just to throw it in there, we hope by 2030 that 70%, if not more, of our electricity will be generated from renewable sources. So I will just show that we have, we will have to change, we'll have to utilize all that, yeah. And heat pumps are I think the simplest way to do that.
Mm,
Uh,
yeah. And it's going to have to be a collective movement from both a consumer perspective in being kind of the trailblazers to go, yes, I am going to take this on. And then also just, as you said, the different trades coming together. And, it will, like you said before on a previous chat we had, in terms of create jobs. Um,
Absolutely, absolutely. This will create, especially in the current climate, hopefully we'll come out of this stronger. I believe that. And but we need to get the economy going, right? So we need, and these are like there are a few regeneration schemes, right? Where it's already being done, maybe at a smaller scale by the local authority, and the local authorities, let's say to start with, are playing a very important role to ensure, for example, that they will start upgrading their housing stock. There are a lot of social housing bodies that they have done that already over the last number of years, with the grants being given from the government via SEAI, let's say. But
Hmm.
we need, let's say, everybody to buy into this, right? And we need more of a carrot approach rather than stick. Okay, so we'll the suppliers and manufacturers are ready. We can scale it. They are indeed challenges at the moment, right, with Brexit and everything else. But we can scale that up overnight. We can, like us, for example, we have 3 big warehouses, right? And it's no problem to bring in a few more hundred heat pumps just to have them there sitting. Yeah, we've done that already. And a lot of other manufacturers and distributors can do the same. It's actually getting it out there into the market. Like if we look, probably, I don't have the exact figures, but I'd say last year there wouldn't have been more than maybe 1,500 heat pumps retrofitted. We want to do 40,000, right?
Wow.
So that is the challenge, you know. Uh,
Yeah.
it it helps that a lot of things have been moving in the right direction, right? Like we have, as mentioned earlier, the new standard on heat pumps, hopefully by quarter 2, Q2 in this year, will be published by NSAI. So that is focuses on domestic heat pumps, the design, installation, commissioning, and what's needed. So that will hopefully bring more confidence
Hmm.
to installers. We need the let's say apprentices that are coming through the system. Part of their learning modules, one of them has to be about heat pumps. It's not will be nice to have it. No, we need
A
we need that,
requirement.
absolutely. I will make that compulsory, uh,
Hmm.
to have our new generation of plumbers coming out of directly knowing what that is. And a lot of them are very keen to learn. Like I talk with a lot of plumbers on my daily job, and most of them really, really want to learn and want to know more.
Really, yeah.
We should encourage them and incentivize them.
Hmm.
This is what I would say. Like there's money available, let's say that we would pay in fines for not achieving our reductions in CO2 and this, that, and the other. We can channel all that into them and helping, let's say, year on year to achieve these targets, you know.
Yeah, yeah, no, I think it's just trying to keep a somewhat positive attitude around the whole thing as well, whilst trying to educate yourself on top of it all. But no, it's really interesting, and fingers crossed everything will align over the next few years. That would be my own hope,
I think
anyway.
so. I think so. Let's say all the right things are happening at the moment. I've been involved in some other committees as well, so I know there is a big push for this to happen, and it will happen. It
Yeah,
will happen. But everybody, I think, involved in this is playing a massive role
yeah, yeah.
in the whole thing.
Yeah, exactly. And just to kind of circle back to the more specifics, if you don't mind, Callan,
Of
in
course.
relation to the heat pump, now being in my house, I have decided to install it and it's in my house. How
Yes.
long should I expect to get out of a heat pump? What is the kind of lifespan of a heat
Okay.
pump?
You'll typically look at, let's say, running hours on the compressor, and and then from there we can extrapolate 3 years. So it will say on average a good heat pump should give run for about 100,000 hours,
Okay.
and you should get 15 plus years out of it.
Okay.
It's very important to note that it relates directly to how the heat pump is being operated. Okay,
Okay.
so this is very important because also a heat pump and its compressor has a limited number of starts and stops. So it's not the same like we would have been used with a traditional boiler, let's say for argument's sake, as it is. Yeah, we want when we start on a heat pump to have it running for 3-4 hours at a time if possible, and then it can switch automatically internally between heating and hot water, and it's very important to allow that. But typically, a heat pump will be for about will work for about 15 plus years, if not more.
Okay. And in terms of obviously, you know, how you use it is very important. Do you need to install certain controls with it to allow for that?
Yes. So heat pumps will have, let's say, a three-way valve, for argument's sake. Yeah, I just wanted to explain it. When
Yeah.
we size a heat pump, we don't size a heat pump for the full load of the house, right? We size it for the biggest load out of the heating and hot water. So let's say, for argument's sake, we have 6 kilowatts load for heating and 3 kilowatt load for hot water. We don't size that for 9 kilowatt. We size it for 6 kilowatt, and we
Gotcha.
give priority for hot water when we have to deliver hot water. Uh, it's the hot water end of thing is being dealt in most cases by internal controls.
Hmm.
And then on the heating side, we have thermostats that will control the internal room temperature. But also most heat pumps have, let's say, what we call a weather-dependent curve. And it's important, just want to mention that, because that based on an outdoor temperature and the desired flow temperature, that can fluctuate. Yeah. So on a day like today, when it's 0 degrees outside, you want to have as much heat being put into your house, so you potentially you can deliver, if it's a radiator system, 55 degrees. But if outside temperature increases to 10, 12 degrees, basically your heat load on the house is lesser, yeah, smaller. So that flow temperature can drop to 30, 35 degrees. Okay. And that will result then in, it all revolves around the bills. It's more less cost. So you will have hot water being controlled by the heat pump itself, and the heating, it is a combination of a weather dependent curve and internal room thermostats.
Okay.
That's how it's
Brilliant.
typically done.
And so obviously we would recommend people who still have kind of their oil and gas boilers to make sure to get them serviced at least once a year. Do you need to get your heat pump?
Of course,
And you do, yeah.
it's exactly the same. A lot of manufacturers and ourselves, we have different tiers of, let's say, warranty. You can get 3, 5, 7 years warranty on a heat pump, and everything is relates to the fact that that has to be serviced on a yearly basis. So that is very, very important. It is a typical cost will be maybe 150, 180 euros. Uh, there are people specialized out there that will come out, will assess your system, will see. They can advise you as well on a few things. It's not just about the heat pump; it's about how we run the heat pump, how we control it. But yes, on a yearly basis, we have to do that. I forgot to mention something earlier. It's very important, if you can, as an end user, to include the heat pump in the in the house insurance package.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
For example, I know that in Sweden there is a database run by insurers, right? And that looks at, let's say, heat pumps breakdown, right? So that will give you an idea. I don't know if that's being done here yet, but that will be something that hopefully will be developed. But it's very important to have, because that will go hand in hand with service and warranty,
Hmm.
right? So they'll also be looking for you. But it's a good thing to have, to insure those goods, because at the end of the day, they keep you warm and they deliver the hot water, for you.
Absolutely. And I suppose that kind of leads on to the other question in terms of what issues people could face with heat pumps. Like, maybe that's coupled with concerns people have prior to installation. But yeah, so what issues could
Okay.
people face?
Right. So there are a few issues that can occur, and one of the first one I'll focus on is positioning the outdoor unit.
Okay.
We need to ensure that we have a continuous flow of air that will allow, let's say, for the heat pump to perform how it's designed, right? So I've been actually only yesterday at a house where, because the heat pump was an eyesore, they have decided to enclose it, right?
In a pretty
That
casing.
exactly in a pretty casing, right? And I said, right, okay. Did you consult with anyone when you've done that? So that will half the efficiency of your heat pump, will half the output. The coil at the back was covered in ice, right? So issues are around that performance of heat pumps. So one of the most important things in make sure it's in a proper ventilated area, right?
Yes.
Uh, make sure it's designed uh, and sized uh, properly. If a heat pump is undersized, it will go into its defrost cycle 10 times more than it should be. So the minute, let's say, we go at lower temperature, uh, let's say at about 3-4 degrees, because we have a high humidity of the air in Ireland, right? When we extract energy from the air, that water will form ice on the back of the unit, and that's okay, right? Because that's what's supposed to happen. But if your unit is undersized, we will never be able to properly defrost that. Because when we defrost, actually a heat pump goes in cooling mode, right? So we are pumping hot gas to melt that ice. You will see steam coming out of it, right? Uh, but it's okay. It's just vapors of water. But if to do that process, we take heat from your radiators or your underfloor heating. But if there's not enough capacity to put heat in there in the first place, you will never catch up. It's a catch 22. We're
Hmm.
trying to heat up and we're trying to defrost. So that is very important, the sizing of your heat pump, right? Uh, when you locate it outside your home, for example, try not to put it underneath a bedroom window. So in a very cold weather, we will try to pass more and more air at higher speeds and volumes to take more energy out of it. That generates noise. So we can go up to 65 dBA. When we normally speak, we speak at that kind of noise level of 60, 65 dBA. So that's something to be considered as well.
Okay.
Uh, when you have the internal unit, whether there is a integrated. We call them integrated because you have a cylinder built within a casing, looks like a big American fridge, right? Consider not to put that beside your bedroom as well, if possible. A lot of the, sorry, not all of them, all the circulating pumps are A-rated pumps anyway,
Hmm.
right? So they're pretty silent and they're fully modulating. But in very cold conditions, the heat pump outside works very hard, the pump inside works very hard to deliver that heat, and that generates noise.
Okay,
So
that's good to know.
you can put them in the utility, you can put them in the hot press, you can put them underneath the stairs, you can put them in the kitchen. They're nice. You can build your kitchen unit around it.
Hmm.
So that's to be considered. Uh, make sure that the installer is experienced, right? Because a lot of issues that we would have had would have been with the wrong pipework being used. And there is very, very important when heat pumps, because they work at low temperatures, they require high flow rates to carry more energy, right? And in doing so, you need bigger pipework. So your typical, whatever, half inch, 3/4 inch that we would have been used with oil gas boilers don't cut it anymore. We're looking at inch, inch and a quarter. So bigger pipework to allow us to carry more flow rates. That that translates to a contractor in cost. So some of them will try to cut corners and use a lesser, let's say, smaller diameter pipes. So get informed. So when get involved with a contractor, ask questions. Very important. Don't be afraid. It's your money. You ask questions. What am I going to get? Mm. And
Yeah.
make sure you get a handover package. So don't just let them install it and go. You have to understand how your system works,
Yeah.
what to look out for. What if there is a fault with my unit? How will I know there is a fault with my unit? Like that unit that I was at yesterday, didn't even have a controller on, or the controller was in the outdoor unit. An end user would not know if that unit is throwing a fault on or an error on. So,
Yeah,
uh,
yeah. And I think there probably would be, I suppose it's like with any home energy upgrade, there'd be a bit of nervousness around who, different installers and getting a qualified one and who to go with. And I think a lot of people tend to go with word of mouth. And, if their family members had
absolutely.
a good experience. But, where I know you'd mentioned on SCAI's website in terms of, if you're eligible for a grant, it can show you who to go to. But where can people find reputable, fully
Mm.
qualified installers?
Uh, it's hard to find there's no such a list,
Oh,
unfortunately, right?
okay.
Yeah, but there is a list on SCAI website
Hmm.
for the approved installers that, let's say, they could process the grant for you,
Okay.
right? So, uh, but it is the word of mouth.
Mm.
So that's what and you still rely on, and you should go and see at least one or two jobs of that contractor,
Okay. Yeah,
because
that's a good
that gives you
idea.
an opportunity, let's say, to talk to somebody else. How did you find that? How is it working for you? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
How
what
is the process?
exactly? What difficulties did you have along the process?
Yeah.
I always give an example of my uh, uh, mother-in-law, because she's retired and then she had some money, and then she was like, right, she knew I was in the business. I wasn't trying to sell her anything. But but she said, what should I do? So she's put in a heat pump, and let's say I would have known the contractor and so on, but it's and they were, let's say, uh, in 2 days was done. Okay, so that's another aspect to consider. You don't want them to be there for 2 weeks.
Yes.
The It's not a massive job to retrofit a heat pump. It's we run some new pipes, change the radiators, you know, and that's it. But
Yeah.
it's good to have a look at some jobs. So
Yeah.
if
No,
you
yeah,
can.
that's good. It's like, show me your like, it's the equivalent of saying, show me your portfolio. Like, what have you done?
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. Because then you learn, like a lot of contractors, especially those that would have done heat pumps for a long time, are very, very good.
Okay.
They know what they're at. They'll present you with uh, drawings, with schematics, and that is the package that you want to have. You want your warranty certificate. You want your commissioning certificate. Like, there are a lot of, unfortunately, people out there that they don't know who commissioned the heat pump. What happened with my heat pump?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And then just in terms of, so you'd mentioned obviously the grant with SCAI. Am I right in saying, does that cover, I suppose it depends on how much the heat pump is going to cost you. But would that cover on average about a third of the cost?
Uh, that is a flat
10.
rate. So
Oh, it is flat
what
rate.
what are
Okay.
you what are you have 100 square meter house or 300 square meter house, and you decide to put in a heat pump? That is 3,500,
Okay.
and you will get I think it's 250 towards your technical assessment. So you have to do the technical assessment first, and then you have based on that, you see if you need to do any improvements to your installation levels.
Yeah.
That could cost uh, a good few bob as well.
Mm.
Right? And that is done first thing before you do anything else. I know there are companies out there, Katie, for example, that have broken that into two. So, for
Okay.
example, the the least you will get out of it, it's an updated B or cert, right? So, for
Mm-hmm.
example, you have to complete a technical assessment to see if your house qualifies. So that can be 800 quid. That's a lot of money, right? Uh, but some of the lads there said, okay, fair enough. I'll tell you what we'll do. We will uh, ask for half, right? And then if you decide to go ahead with it, we will continue with the process. So they're
Yes.
trying not to burden with another. Now, you will get 250 euros back on that technical assessment cost. But still, it's a lot of costs. There are a lot of costs that
Yeah.
when you add them up,
Yeah. And then
makes it expensive.
In terms of your opinion, Callan, like, do you think that there, like what grants or even business model options do you think would help promote heat pump adoption? For example, could heat pump suppliers be paid over the life of a heat pump rather than all at once? I'm sure you've thought about this at length, excuse me, but just to kind of get your
Yes.
ideas of what you think could work.
Uh, you will have to pay for that, and 99% of the time you pay upfront because the manufacturer pays upfront for the
Yeah,
cost of their
okay.
materials, for the cost of labor and transport, and so on and so on. But there are other models that could be applied, and they are, let's say, um, energy companies, right, that could maybe sweeten this deal. Okay, so they are. I know, for example, I don't know if this is gonna hopefully grow legs here, but I hope it will. In France, you have energy companies that will come to you or to me and say, right, what is your annual running cost for uh, your energy bill? Very important. So we're talking energy. That is energy thermal and electrical. And so they'll say, how about we will half that for you? And you sign a contract with us for 20 years, right? And we will insulate your house. We will put in a heat pump. And for 20 years, you're going to buy from us energy at X value per kilowatt hour. So
Interesting.
that's going to be a model that is going to that could work. Because at the moment, everything is upfront. Everything is loaded upfront. So that's why it will not uh, uh, take off at the rate that we want to take off. But if
Mm,
somebody comes to you and says, if you remember in the past, I remember when I came to Ireland, they still had those electrical shops where you could buy your stereo and yeah, and
yeah.
so it is that thing scaled up big time. So where I paid whatever 300 euros for something, now we're looking to pay 15,000 euros. But imagine that on your energy bill.
Mm-hmm.
That will be different. Okay, so if we look at, I don't know, 15 grand over 20 years, uh, oh, then we're talking, it makes sense. It's not that expensive because those energy companies could upgrade your home to the level that you want to be upgraded
Mm-hmm.
to qualify for grants. And I know that as if France is a very established heat pump market. I don't know how many, probably 100,000 heat pumps are being sold there because of their nuclear power and electricity is being very cheap. Yeah. I only read an article yesterday, for example, about Finland. Finland's market last year was over 100,000 heat pumps,
Wow.
most of them retrofit heat pumps. So the Scandinavian countries will have, let's say, uh, let's say, homes were built to a certain standard that maybe we've only adopted here recently.
Mm-hmm.
So those homes had a heat pump in them from late 80s, if not earlier. I see, I see a solution. Uh, the solution doesn't come from one uh, part of the industry. I see district heating absolutely mixed with heat pumps, uh, solar, wind power. We all have to come together. So if we don't have enough electricity generated from renewable sources, we still leave a big carbon footprint behind us, yeah, because we're burning gas and coal to
Yeah.
generate electricity.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's all intertwined. Has to Everything has to work together. So it's not just like heat pumps will be playing a massive role in achieving our 2030 and 2050 targets,
Mm-hmm.
but everything else plays as big of a role as well. And district heating, uh, one of them, and a very, very important one, to be quite
Yeah.
honest.
Yeah. And that's something that I'm going to be kind of delving into further later in the year, just to kind of explain what that's all about, the different projects that are going on here. But I think that is a perfect note to finish on, Calin. I think just that idea of collectively coming together and, you know, working together. It might sound like a cliche, but as you said, it's absolutely necessary for us to reach our targets. But thank you so much for your input and your expertise. I've learned so much, and everything that you've mentioned today, be it links, acronyms, any definitions, I'll make sure to put them into kind of our little message underneath our YouTube video and on our website. But thank you so much.
Thank you very much for the opportunity. And if I can help with anything else in the future, let me know.
That's
It was a
brilliant.
pleasure.
Thank you.